My twin brother hadn't called me in 8 years. When his name flashed on my phone at 11:47 p.m., I almost didn't answer, but something inside pushed me to pick up. Then I heard him crying, "Please, save me." He begged me for help because his own son had locked him in a shed for 4 years and treated him like an animal. They thought he was too weak to fight back and that no one would come to help. They were wrong. When I arrived, I made damn sure they paid the price. Hello everyone, welcome to our story. Before we begin, where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. If you enjoy stories like this, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Quick note: this story includes fictionalized elements for entertainment and educational purposes. Any resemblance to actual names or settings is coincidental, but the message is worth your time. The phone rang at 11:47 on a Thursday night in early May. I was halfway through a bourbon and a paperback western when the screen lit up with a number I didn't recognize. Tennessee area code. I almost let it go to voicemail. Something stopped me. I picked up. Silence. Then breathing shallow, ragged, like someone trying not to be heard. "Hello," a whisper. "Barely there." "Sterling." I sat up. The voice was familiar in a way that made my chest tighten. Familiar the way your own reflection is familiar when you haven't looked in a mirror for years. "Who is this?" "It's me." A pause, a shaky breath. "It's Stanley. My brother. My twin brother." 8 years. 8 years since I'd heard his voice. 8 years since Ruth's funeral, since I told him his son was poison, since he told me to get out and never come back. "Stanley." I set the glass down. "Where are you?" "In a shed, behind the house. Derek locked me in here. 4 years now." His voice cracked. "He's going to finish me off, Sterling. 1 week after the party. May 15th. I heard him talking. I heard..." Slow down. "What party?" "Anniversary, his and Vanessa's. He's making me sign papers. The land. Everything. If I don't..." He stopped. I heard a faint scraping sound like metal on concrete. "I don't have much time. The phone's almost gone. Emma gave it to me. She's 9. She's..." "Who's Emma?" "My granddaughter. She's the only one who Derek took everything, Sterling. My phone, my computer, changed the house number. I couldn't reach you. I wanted to. For 8 years I wanted to call, but he made sure I couldn't." And now, his voice broke completely. I heard him crying. Quiet, desperate sobs that sounded like they'd been held in for years. I stood up. The bourbon was forgotten. The book hit the floor. "Listen to me," I said. My voice was steady, calm. The voice I used when a client was falling apart and needed someone to hold the pieces together. "Don't sign anything. Do you hear me? Nothing. No matter what he says. He'll hurt me." "I know, but I'm coming. 2 days. Can you hold on for 2 days? I don't know if..." "Yes, you can. Listen, there's a Chevron station off of 40, exit 247. You know it." A pause. "I think so. 4:30 in the morning, May 6th. 2 days from now. Meet me there. Can you get out?" "I don't know how." "Find a way. You got out tonight, didn't you?" Derek forgot to lock the door. He was drunk. Then you can do it again. 4:30, exit 247. I'll be there." "Sterling, I'm scared." I closed my eyes. 64 years old, and my brother sounded like a child. Like the kid who used to hide behind me when the neighborhood dogs got too loud. Like the kid I used to protect. "I know you are," I said. "But I'm not going to let him finish this. You hear me? I'm not letting him take you. It's been so long. I didn't think you'd..." "I'm your brother. That doesn't stop. Silence, then softer. Ruth died. Did you know? I know. I was there at the funeral. You were. Back row. I left before the reception. I swallowed. I'm sorry I couldn't stay. You told me Derek would destroy me. You were right. We'll fix it. There's so much money, Sterling. The land. $6 million. He found out about the highway project and a sound in the background. Footsteps. Heavy. Getting closer. Stanley's breathing stopped. Stanley. He's coming. I have to go. Exit 247, 4:30, don't forget. I won't, The line went dead. I stood there in my living room in Bend, Oregon, holding a silent phone, staring at the dark window. Outside, the Deschutes River ran quiet under the stars. Inside, my hands were shaking. 8 years. 8 years since I'd walked away from my brother because he wouldn't listen. 8 years since I told him his son was dangerous. 8 years since he chose Derek over me, and now Derek had locked him in a shed like an animal. Starved him. Controlled him. Isolated him so completely that it took a 9-year-old girl sneaking him a phone for Stanley to reach the outside world. I looked at the clock. 11:51. 2 days, 1,700 miles. I could make it if I didn't stop. I walked into the bedroom, opened the closet, and pulled out the black duffel bag I kept in the back. 40 years as a private investigator. 40 years tracking people who didn't want to be found, gathering evidence on people who thought they were untouchable. I'd retired 3 years ago. Thought I was done. I wasn't done. I unzipped the bag. Inside, a button camera. A voice recorder. Lockpicks. USB drives. A Glock 19. I hadn't touched in months. $10,000 in cash, because you never knew when you'd need to disappear fast or pay someone to look the other way. I also kept a file, old photos, newspaper clippings, a copy of our birth certificates, proof that Stanley Brooks and Sterling Brooks were identical twins born 11 minutes apart in a VA hospital in Memphis, Tennessee in 1961. I pulled out one of the photos. 2 kids, maybe 7 years old, arms around each other, gap-toothed grins. You couldn't tell us apart unless you knew the scar on my left eyebrow from a baseball accident. Stanley kept me out of fights. I kept him out of his own head. That was the deal. That was always the deal. I set the photo on the bed, packed the duffel, and went to the kitchen. Made coffee, strong, filled a thermos, grabbed a road atlas because I didn't trust GPS when you were driving into a situation you might need to leave fast. 11:58. I stood at the door, hand on the knob, and thought about the last thing Stanley said. You were right. Yeah, I was. And it didn't matter. Because he was my brother and he'd called me, and that meant I was already gone. I locked the door behind me, threw the duffel in the back of my truck, and pulled out of the driveway. The road stretched east, dark and empty. I had 2 days to get to Tennessee. 2 days to figure out how to pull my brother out of hell. And then I was going to deal with Derek. The highway swallowed the night behind me. Idaho first, then Wyoming, empty stretches of asphalt, where the only lights were my headlights cutting through the dark. I kept the window cracked. Cold air kept me sharp. The thermos of coffee sat in the cup holder half empty by the time I crossed into Nebraska. 2,000 miles. 30 hours if I didn't stop. I wasn't planning to stop. Stanley's voice kept looping in my head. 4 years. He locked me in a shed. The way he'd said it, flat hollow, like he'd already accepted it as normal. That's what happened when someone broke you down long enough. You stopped fighting. You stopped believing anyone would come. But he'd called me. After 8 years of silence, he'd called. That meant he hadn't given up yet. I thought about the last time I'd seen him face to face. Ruth's funeral, spring of 2017. 8 years ago. I'd driven the same route, then Oregon to Tennessee. Pulled into Millbrook the morning of the service and sat in the back pew. Stanley didn't know I was there. I'd loved Ruth. She was kind. The kind of woman who sent birthday cards every year even after Stanley and I stopped speaking. Cancer took her fast. 6 months from diagnosis to gone. After the service, I waited outside by the parking lot. Stanley came out surrounded by people, neighbors, church folks, co-workers. Derek was right next to him. 30 years old then, already married to Vanessa, already living in Stanley's house. I saw it immediately. The way Derek stood too close. The way he answered questions before Stanley could. The way he had his hand on Stanley's shoulder. Like he was holding him up, but really he was holding him down. I pulled Stanley aside when the crowd thinned. "I'm sorry about Ruth," I said. Stanley looked at me like he was seeing a ghost. "Sterling, you came. You need to get Derek out of your house." His face changed. Closed off. "Don't start. He's dangerous. He's got his hands on your finances. He's isolating you." Ruth kept him in check, but now she's gone, Stanley said, his voice cracked. "And you show up at her funeral to tell me my son is the problem. He is the problem. She'll get out." He stepped back. "I buried my wife today. I don't need you here telling me how to run my life. I needed you 8 years ago when Dad died. I needed you when Ruth got sick, but now you show up to trash my son. I'm trying to help you. Then leave. That's how you help." Derek walked over, put his arm around Stanley, looked me dead in the eye. "Everything okay here, Dad?" "Sterling was just leaving," Stanley said. Derek smiled. Cold. Calculated. "Yeah. I think that's a good idea." I looked at my brother one more time. "When you need me, call. I'll come." Stanley turned his back. Derek guided him toward the car. I watched them go. I left Tennessee that afternoon. Drove straight through the night back to Oregon. Told myself I'd done what I could. But Derek had heard me. He knew I was watching. And that's when it started. Stanley told me on the phone Derek took his cell the week after the funeral. Changed the house number. Took over Stanley's email. Told the neighbors Stanley wanted privacy while he grieved. Slowly, carefully, Derek cut every line to the outside world. For 8 years, my brother lived 20 feet from a phone he couldn't use and a front door he couldn't walk through without permission. The coffee was cold by the time I hit Kansas. I stopped at a truck stop outside Salina, filled the tank, bought a sandwich I didn't taste, and got back on the road. I checked the duffel bag in the back seat. Button camera, voice recorder, USB drives, lockpicks. The Glock was wrapped in a towel at the bottom. I hadn't fired it in 3 years. Hoped I wouldn't need to now. But I wasn't walking into that house unarmed. I'd spent 40 years as a private investigator. Tracked bail jumpers, gathered evidence on fraud cases, found missing kids. I'd seen the worst people could do to each other, but a son locking his father in a shed, starving him, stealing everything he had, and then planning to finish him off for a piece of land. That was new. I crossed into Missouri just after dawn. The sky went from black to gray to pale orange. Farmland stretched out on both sides, endless fields, silos, barns with rusted roofs. Kept driving. By the time I hit Arkansas, the sun was full up. I rolled the window down further. My eyes burned. My back ached. I didn't care. Stanley had 2 days to stay alive. I'd get him out. Hide him somewhere safe. And then I'd go back. Not as his brother. As bait. The sun climbed higher. The miles fell away. I thought about the photo on my bed back in Ben, 2 7-year-old boys with matching grins. We'd been inseparable then. Stanley was the quiet one. I was the loud one. Somewhere along the way, we'd lost that. But I was getting it back. The sign appeared just after noon. Green and white bolted to the side of the highway. "Welcome to Tennessee." I took a breath. Checked the mirrors. The road behind me was empty. The road ahead curved east into rolling hills and dense trees. 40 miles to exit 247. 2 hours until the meet. I reached into the duffel and pulled out the Glock, checked the magazine, full, slid it back into the bag and zipped it shut. Stanley said Derek was dangerous, said there was $6 million on the line and Derek would do anything to get it. Fine. Derek had spent 8 years hunting my brother. Now I was hunting him. The Chevron station sat at the edge of nowhere, a bright island of fluorescent lights in the pre-dawn dark. 2 gas pumps, a convenience store with bars on the windows, a rusted picnic table out front. I pulled the Silverado into the far corner of the lot, backed it in so I could see the road, and waited. 4:27 in the morning, 3 minutes until the meet. I poured the last of the thermos coffee. Cold now. Bitter. I drank it anyway. My eyes burned from 30 hours of driving, but I wasn't tired. Adrenaline had kicked in somewhere around the Arkansas border and hadn't let go. A figure appeared at the edge of the parking lot. Walking. Slow. Limping. Stanley. He looked like a ghost. He'd lost weight 40 pounds, maybe more. His clothes hung off him like they belonged to someone else. Flannel shirt torn at the shoulder. Jeans caked with dirt. No shoes. His feet were bare and torn up, red streaks of blood on the asphalt behind him. His face was worse. Gaunt. Hollow. Beard grown wild and patchy. Eyes sunken so deep I could barely see them. But I knew those eyes. I'd seen them in the mirror every day of my life. He stopped 10 feet away. Sterling. I crossed the distance in 3 steps and pulled him into my arms. He collapsed against me. His whole body shook. I felt his ribs through the shirt. "I got you, huh?" I said. I guided him to the picnic table, pulled out water and a sandwich. He drank half the bottle in one pull, gasping. Tore into the sandwich like he hadn't eaten in days. Maybe he hadn't. I cleaned the cuts on his feet, wrapped them in gauze. His hands were shaking so bad he could barely hold the sandwich. "How far did you walk?" I asked. 3 miles, maybe 4. Derek passed out drunk around 2. Left the shed unlocked. I waited until I heard him snoring, then I ran. "You did good. I didn't think you'd come." He looked up at me. Tears streaked through the grime on his face. 8 years, Sterling. I'm your brother. That doesn't stop." He broke. Full sobs. I let him cry. Let him get it out. When Stanley finally spoke again, his voice was steadier. "You were right. 8 years ago. At Ruth's funeral. You told me Derek would destroy me. I didn't believe you." Stanley's hands clenched around the water bottle. The week after the funeral, Derek took my phone. Said the bill was too high, he'd handle it. Then he changed the house number. Took over my email. Told everyone I wanted privacy while I grieved. I didn't see it happening. By the time I realized what he was doing, I couldn't reach anyone. He isolated you. Sucked completely. He made me sign a power of attorney. Said it was for my own good. I was grieving, not thinking straight. After that, they had everything. My pension. My Social Security. $2,400 a month pension. $1,850 Social Security. Every month for 8 years. He laughed bitterly. Derek bought a new truck. Vanessa got a diamond ring. They all lived off me while I... He stopped. 4 years ago, Derek moved me to the shed. Put an electronic lock on the door. I couldn't get out. His voice broke again. "How'd you get the phone, Emma?" His face softened. "She's 9. Derek's daughter. She saw him hurt me one night. Really hurt me. A few days later, she snuck out to the shed and gave me an old phone. Said her aunt didn't use it anymore. It didn't have service, but it still had Wi-Fi. She told me the password. I waited until I heard Derek talking about the party May 15th. Heard him say he'd finish me off a week after if I didn't sign the land over. That's when I called you. First time in 8 years you had a phone. Well, first time I could reach you. You're the only person I could think of. The only person who'd come. I'm here now, I said. And we're going to fix this. I laid out the plan. We'd swap places. I'd go back to the house as Stanley, live in the shed, endure whatever Derek threw at me, gather evidence, financial records, recordings, anything that would hold up in court. Stanley would go to Knoxville, hide, rest, recover. When I had enough to bury Derek, I'd call the police and blow the whole thing open. Stanley stared at me. You're going to pretend to be me? We're twins, identical. No one's looked at you closely in 4 years. They won't notice. Derek will. Derek sees what he wants to see. He thinks you're broken. He thinks he's won. I'm betting he won't look too hard. Stanley hesitated, then nodded. I called an Uber Black. Paid extra for discretion. The driver arrived 20 minutes later. Middle-aged guy, clean car, didn't ask questions when I handed him $200 in cash. My brother's been sick, I said. Take him to the Riverside Inn in Knoxville. Room's already booked. Make sure he gets there safe. The driver nodded, helped Stanley into the back seat. I gave Stanley the rest of the cash, $5,000, and the key to room 412. Then I pulled out the photo I'd packed. 2 7-year-old boys, arms around each other, gap-toothed grins. Give this to Emma, I said. Tell her Uncle Sterling's here. Stanley took the photo, stared at it for a long time. You were always the brave one, he said. No. You survived 4 years in a shed. That's braver than anything I've ever done. He gripped my hand, hard, then let go. The Uber pulled away. I watched the taillights disappear down the highway. Then I turned back to the picnic table, stripped off my jacket, my shirt, my jeans, put on Stanley's filthy clothes. They stank of sweat and mildew and fear. The flannel hung loose. The jeans were too big. I hadn't lost 40 pounds, but in the early morning light, with dirt smudged on my face and my shoulders hunched, I could pass. I climbed into the truck, looked at myself in the rearview mirror, saw my brother staring back. The sun crept over the horizon. Orange light spilled across the fields. I put the truck in drive and headed toward Millbrook, toward Derek, toward a shed with an electronic lock and a father who'd been erased from the world. I wasn't Stanley Brooks anymore, but for the next week, Derek would think I was, and that was all the weapon I needed. The house at 342 Oakwood Drive looked worse than I'd imagined. 2 stories, white paint peeling in long strips, shutters hanging crooked. The lawn was overgrown with weeds, beer cans scattered across the porch. A rusted sign near the mailbox read, Brooks Family Home, established 1952. I parked the battered Silverado in the driveway and sat for a moment, hands on the wheel. This was Stanley's house. The house he'd bought with Ruth 40 years ago. The house where he'd raised his kids, Linda and Derek. The house that should have been his sanctuary. Now it was his prison. I climbed out, pulled my cap low, and walked toward the front door. My shirt smelled like Stanley sweat dirt fear. My hands were shaking, but I kept them steady. I wasn't Sterling Brooks, retired private investigator from Oregon. I was Stanley Brooks, 64-year-old man, broken by his own son. I knocked once. No answer. I tried the handle. Unlocked. Inside, the air was thick with stale smoke and grease. The living room was cluttered, empty pizza boxes, soda cans, a flat-screen TV mounted on the wall, blaring a morning talk show. The furniture was old, but had been nice once Stanley's furniture, Ruth's taste. Now it was stained and sagging under years of neglect. A framed photo sat on the mantel. I stopped. It was a family portrait. Derek, maybe 30 years old, standing beside Vanessa, both of them smiling. And in Vanessa's arms, a baby. A tiny girl with dark hair and wide eyes, maybe a year old. Emma. The photo was dated April 2017. I felt something tighten in my chest. 8 years ago. March 2017. Ruth had just died from cancer. Derek called Stanley, said he and Vanessa needed a place to stay. Vanessa had just had a baby, a little girl named Emma. They said they wanted to help Stanley, a grieving widower, a lonely old man. Stanley believed them. He always believed Derek. But within the first month, Derek took Stanley's phone, changed the house number, cut off the email, turned Stanley into a prisoner in his own home. And Emma, that innocent baby in the photo, was now 9 years old. She'd grown up in a house filled with cruelty, manipulation, and lies. But somehow she still had enough heart left to slip her grandfather a phone. "Where the hell have you been?" I turned. Derek stood in the doorway to the kitchen, arms crossed, red-faced and sweating. He was pushing 300 pounds stuffed into a stained gray t-shirt and sweatpants. His hair was thinning, his jaw slack. He looked nothing like the clean-cut man in the photo. I didn't answer. Just stared at him the way Stanley would, silent, defeated. Derek stepped closer. "I asked you a question, old man." "Walked," I said quietly, keeping my voice hoarse, broken. "Walked where?" "Just walked." His eyes narrowed. For a moment I thought he'd seen through me. Then he snorted, shaking his head. "You're losing it. You know that..." Behind him, a woman appeared, Vanessa. 36, bottle blonde hair, red acrylic nails, wearing a cheap silk blouse and tight jeans. She wrinkled her nose. "God, he smells," she said. "Don't let him in the house like that." An older woman appeared next, Lorraine, Vanessa's mother. Gray hair, pulled back, thin lips, sharp eyes. She looked me up and down like I was garbage. "You owe us $500, she said flatly. "Rent for last month." I blinked. Rent, this was Stanley's house. A younger woman drifted in from the hallway, Jessica, Vanessa's sister. 28, bleached hair glued to her phone. She barely looked up. "Can't believe the old man's still alive," she muttered. Then I heard footsteps on the stairs. Light, careful. Emma. She stood on the bottom step, clutching the railing. 9 years old, brown hair in a messy ponytail, wearing a faded dress 2 sizes too small. Her blue eyes were wide, cautious, but when she saw me, she smiled, just a flicker. I felt my chest tighten again. Derek grabbed my arm. "Come on. You're not staying in the house." He dragged me through the kitchen, past the clutter and the trash, out the back door, into the yard. The grass was knee-high, littered with broken lawn chairs and rusted tools. At the far edge of the property sat a shed, 8 feet by 10 feet, wood siding, small window covered with a tarp. Derek pulled a phone from his pocket, tapped a code. The door clicked, electronic lock. He shoved it open. "This is where you live now," he said. "You don't come in the house unless I say so. You don't talk to anyone. You stay here. Understand?" I looked inside. A thin, filthy mattress on the floor. A plastic water bottle. No toilet, no sink. One bare light bulb hanging from the ceiling. In the corner, a small ventilation hole covered with an oily rag. My jaw tightened, but I kept my face blank. "Understand," Derek repeated louder. I nodded. "Good." He stepped back. "If you try to leave, I'll lock you in for a week. Got it?" I nodded again. He walked away, muttering under his breath. The door stayed open for now. I stepped inside. The air was stale, thick. I crouched by the ventilation hole, pulled the rag aside. A faint chemical smell drifted out, propane, maybe carbon monoxide. The vent had been deliberately blocked. I glanced at the water heater mounted on the outside wall. The exhaust pipe was loose, angled wrong. Gases were leaking into the shed. This wasn't neglect. This was a trap. I pulled out the button camera hidden in my shirt collar, aimed it at the vent, the water heater, the electronic lock on the door. Clicked 3 photos. The camera was small enough to hide battery good for 72 hours. I sat on the mattress staring at the door. Derek didn't just want to exploit Stanley. He wanted him gone. And now, sitting in this 8 by 10 box, where my brother had spent 4 years of his life breathing poison, starving alone, I understood exactly how far Derek was willing to go. I looked at the photo on my phone, the one Stanley had given me at the gas station. The 2 of us, 7 years old, fishing with our dad. "Hold on, Stanley, I'm going to end this. But first I needed to survive it." The dark came fast. One moment the shed was dim. The next, it was black. Complete. The kind of dark where you couldn't see your own hand in front of your face. I lay on the mattress, listened. Rats in the walls. Something larger moving through the grass outside, possum maybe, or a stray cat. The creak of the house settling. Voices drifting from an open window. Vanessa laughing, Derek shouting at the television. Stanley had done this for 4 years. 1,400 nights. Alone. Breathing poison. Listening to his son's voice through the walls. I reached up, touched the carved words above my head. Emma's sunshine. A 9-year-old girl had kept my brother alive. Not food, not hope. Just the knowledge that someone still saw him as human. I sat up, pulled the button camera from my collar, turned it off, saved the battery. I'd need it later. The smell was stronger at night. That sharp, sour chemical tang. I could taste it in the back of my throat. I stood, felt my way to the vent, pulled another rag free. The smell hit me like a fist. I coughed. Propane. Definitely propane, but not a leak. Not an accident. I pressed my face close to the vent. Listened. A faint hiss. Steady. Like a gas line left open just a crack. Not enough to explode. Just enough to fill a sealed room over months. Make a man dizzy. Nauseous. Weak. Until one morning he didn't wake up, and Derek would find him. Call the paramedics. Cry at the funeral. Inherit everything. Clean, quiet. No one would question it. I pulled the camera back out, activated the flash, took photos of the vent, the stuffed rags, the metal grate, then the door, the electronic lock, the serial number stamped into the steel plate. Mitchell Warren would need this. A lawyer could trace the purchase, prove Derek had installed it, prove he'd locked his father in here intentionally. I turned, scanned the rest of the shed with the camera's light, and in the corner a cardboard box, small, crumpled, shoved under a broken shelf. I knelt, pulled it out. Inside photos, old ones, faded colors, white borders, a wedding. 1980. Stanley in a brown suit, Ruth in a simple white dress holding daisies, both smiling, young, happy. I hadn't been at that wedding. Stanley and I weren't speaking then. Some argument I couldn't even remember now. Something stupid, something that didn't matter. I'd missed his wedding, missed the birth of his kids, missed decades of his life because I was stubborn and proud. I flipped to the next photo. A little girl, maybe 10 years old, dark hair and braids, gap-toothed smile. Linda, Stanley's daughter. I wondered where she was now. If she knew her father had been locked in a shed. If she'd tried to help. The next photo made me stop. A boy, 5 years old, chubby cheeks, sitting on Stanley's shoulders. Stanley grinning up at him. The boy's hands tangled in his father's hair. Derek, that little boy had loved his father. You could see it in the way he held on. The way Stanley looked at him, proud, protective, full of love that didn't ask for anything back. Somewhere between that photo and now something had broken. Or maybe it had always been broken. Maybe Derek had always been capable of this. And Stanley had loved him anyway. Had made excuses. Had hoped he'd change until it was too late. I put the photos back, closed the box, shoved it under the shelf, checked my watch. Just past 11. 8 years since Ruth's funeral. 8 years since I told Stanley his son was dangerous. 8 years since he told me to leave. And in those 8 years, Derek had isolated him, stripped him of every connection to the outside world, stolen his money, locked him in a box, slowly tried to end him. All while I sat in Oregon, retired, content, telling myself I'd done what I could. I leaned back against the wall, closed my eyes. Stanley had survived 4 years of this. 1,400 nights of breathing poison, and listening to rats and carving messages into the wall for a little girl who might never see them. And he'd survived, because somewhere deep down, he still believed someone would come. I wasn't going to let him down. A sound. Soft. Outside. Footsteps. Light. Careful. Moving through the grass toward the shed. I stood, moved to the door, pressed my ear against the metal. The footsteps stopped, then a whisper, small, uncertain. "Grandpa, Emma." I crouched, put my mouth near the gap under the door. "I'm here, sweetheart. Today I brought you water. The bottle inside is old. Daddy doesn't change it." I heard something slide across the concrete. A plastic bottle. She'd pushed it under the door. I picked it up. Full, cold, fresh. "Thank you," I said. "Are you okay? Daddy was really mad today." "I'm fine. He scares me when he's mad." I closed my eyes, thought about what to say. "Emma, do you remember the phone you gave your grandpa?" "Yes." "That was very brave. You helped him." A long silence. Then, "Is he coming back?" "Yes. Soon. But right now, I need you to be brave again." "Can you do that?" "I think so." "Good. Don't tell anyone you're bringing me water. Don't tell anyone we talked. Just keep doing what you're doing. And when your grandpa comes back, everything will be better." "Promise." I swallowed. "I promise." "Okay. I have to go. Aunt Jessica is looking for me." "You go. Be safe." I heard her footsteps retreat. Soft. Quick. Fading into the night. I sat back down, held the water bottle in my hands. A 9-year-old girl, sneaking through the dark, risking her father's anger, just to bring water to the man she thought was her grandfather. Stanley had carved those words into the wall for a reason. Emma was his sunshine, the only light in 4 years of darkness, and now she was mine. I opened the bottle, took a long drink. The water was cold, clean. I set it down, lay back, stared up at the dark ceiling. Tomorrow Derek would test me, push me, see if I'd break the way Stanley had. But I wasn't Stanley. I was a private investigator who'd spent 40 years learning how to lie, how to endure, how to win. Derek thought he'd locked his father in a cage. He'd locked a wolf in instead, and sooner or later, wolves always get out. The kitchen smelled like grease and overcooked meat. I stood in the doorway watching them eat. Derek sat at the head of the table, a thick ribeye on his plate barely touched. He sawed into it with a steak knife, chewing loud, mouth open. Grease ran down his chin. Vanessa sat to his right. Roasted chicken. She picked at it with her fork, checking her phone between bites. Lorraine sat across from her. 2 slices of pizza on a paper plate. She ate in silence, jaw working mechanically. Jessica slouched at the far end, scrolling through social media, a slice of pepperoni pizza in one hand. And Emma, small, quiet. A bowl of instant ramen in front of her. The cheap kind that came in styrofoam cups. She spooned the noodles slowly, carefully, like she was trying to make them last. No one spoke. Just the scrape of forks, the hum of the refrigerator. Derek finally noticed me. "What are you doing?" he said around a mouthful of steak. "Waiting," I said. "For what?" "Dinner." He snorted, gestured to the counter. "Your food's over there. Bowl and bread. Don't say I don't feed you." I turned, saw a chipped ceramic bowl on the counter. Soup. Cold. A gray film on the surface. Beside it, a piece of bread. Hard. Green at the edges. I looked back at the table. At the steak. The chicken. The pizza. At Emma eating instant noodles while her father gorged on ribeye. Something shifted inside me. Not anger. Not yet. Just a cold, clear understanding of who these people were. I stepped into the light, walked to the table. No one moved. They all looked up. Surprised. I stopped beside Derek, looked down at his plate. "You're not eating that," I said. Derek blinked. "What?" I reached down, picked up the steak with my bare hand. Grease ran between my fingers. Hot. I took a bite. The room went silent. Vanessa's fork clattered onto her plate. Jessica's thumb stopped mid-scroll. Lorraine's jaw stopped chewing. Emma stared, wide-eyed, frozen. Derek stood up so fast his chair screeched backward. What the hell do you think you're—" I swallowed, took another bite. Chewed slowly, looked him dead in the eye. "I'm hungry," I said, calm, quiet. I took it. "What are you going to do?" His face went red, blotchy. His hands curled into fists, shaking. His breath came fast through his nose. He stepped toward me. I didn't move, didn't blink, just held his gaze. For a moment we stood there, 2 feet apart, his fists raised, mine holding his dinner. I saw it then, the flicker, the crack. His eyes met mine and something in them shifted. Uncertainty, confusion, maybe fear. He'd been looking at his father, the man he'd beaten down, starved, locked away, the man who flinched when he raised his voice. But I wasn't that man, and somewhere buried under the bourbon and the bluster, Derek knew it. His eyes dropped, just for a second. Down to the floor, then back up, but it was enough. He took a step back. "You've lost your mind," he muttered, but his voice was quieter now. Weaker. I took another bite of the steak. Let the silence stretch. Let him sit with the fact that he'd backed down in his own house, in front of his wife, his mother-in-law, his daughter. I finished the steak, every bite, slow, deliberate. Then I set the plate back down on the table, right in front of him. "You're not dealing with the same man anymore," I said. No one spoke. Vanessa's mouth hung open. Jessica had stopped scrolling entirely. Lorraine stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Emma's eyes were wide, but she wasn't scared. She was hopeful. I turned, walked back toward the door. "Get back in the shed," Derek said behind me. His voice shook. "Now." I stopped, looked back over my shoulder. "I know the way," and I said. Then I walked out, across the yard, to the shed. The door was unlocked. I stepped inside, pulled it shut behind me, sat down on the mattress, leaned back against the wall. My hands were still greasy. I wiped them on Stanley's filthy jeans. My heart was pounding. Not from fear, from satisfaction. 40 years as an investigator. 40 years of playing roles. Pretending to be someone I wasn't. Getting people to show me who they really were. Derek thought he was dangerous, thought he was in control. But control was an illusion, and I'd just shattered it. I heard shouting from the house. Derek's voice. Vanessa's. A door slammed. Footsteps pounded upstairs. I smiled. Let them shout. Let them panic. Let them wonder what the hell had just happened. Because tomorrow I'd do it again. And the day after. And the day after that. I'd push. I'd prod. I'd make Derek doubt himself. Make him angry. Make him sloppy. And when he finally lost control completely, I'd have it all on camera. The lock clicked outside. Derek had come back. Reset the code. I didn't care. I pulled the button camera from my collar. Checked the recording. Still going. Battery at 60%. I'd caught the whole thing. The steak, the standoff. The moment Derek's eyes dropped. Good. I turned off the camera. Lay back on the mattress. Closed my eyes. From the house, I heard a door creak open. Soft footsteps on the grass. Moving toward the shed. A pause at the door. Then a whisper. "Grandpa, Emma." I sat up. Moved to the door. "I'm here," I said quietly. "What? That was amazing." Her voice was hushed, excited. "Daddy got so mad. He threw a glass. Mom told him to calm down. Grandma said you've gone crazy. I smiled despite myself. Maybe I have. No. Her voice was firm, small but firm. You're different. You're not scared anymore. I pressed my palm against the metal door. Wished I could see her face. Your grandpa's a strong man, Emma. Stronger than anyone gave him credit for. He just forgot for a while. But he's remembering now. Is he really coming back? Yes. Promise. I promise. A long silence. Then, I'm glad you're here. My throat tightened. Me too, sweetheart. I have to go. Daddy's looking for me. Be careful. I will. Her footsteps faded. I sat back down. Let out a slow breath. Tomorrow Derek would come at me harder, angrier, more desperate. Good. Let him come. Because the more he pushed, the more he'd reveal. And I was just getting started. The house emptied just after 9. I heard Derek's truck start. Heard Vanessa yelling at Emma to hurry up. Heard the crunch of gravel as they pulled out of the driveway. Then silence. I waited. Counted to 60. Listened for any sound. Nothing. I pulled the lockpicks from my pocket. The shed door was easy, cheap electronic lock, the kind you bought online for $50. Took me 30 seconds. The door clicked open. I slipped inside the house through the unlocked back door. Careless. Arrogant. Derek didn't think his father could escape. I moved through the kitchen, past the table where I'd taken Derek's steak. Climbed the stairs. Slow. Careful. Every step a potential creak. Derek's office was at the end of the hall. Door half open, messy. Papers scattered across a cheap desk. A laptop sitting open screen, dark. I touched the trackpad. The screen lit up. No password prompt, just the desktop. I opened the file explorer. Found a folder labeled Land, Highway Project. Clicked it. A PDF, appraisal report, official letterhead, Tennessee Department of Transportation. Property value $6,200,000. Highway expansion project. Total budget $180 million. Estimated closing date August 15th, 2025. $6.2 million. For a piece of land Stanley probably didn't even know he still owned. Land his father had bought 50 years ago for almost nothing. Derek had found out, and he'd decided it was his. I pulled out the button camera, took a photo of the screen. Then I opened the next file. Life insurance policy. Stanley Brooks. Beneficiary Derek Brooks. Death benefit $750,000. Policy date March 12, 2023. 2 years ago. Right around the time Derek started stuffing rags into the vent. I took another photo, opened the next folder. Bank statements, Stanley's accounts, pension payments, Social Security deposits. Every month, like clockwork, the money came in. And every month it went straight out, transferred to an account in Derek's name. I scrolled back. 8 years of transfers. Every month. $2,400 pension. $1,850 Social Security. Over $400,000. Derek had stolen $400,000 from his own father. I found a USB drive in the desk drawer, plugged it in, copied everything. The land appraisal, the insurance policy, the bank statements, a file labeled POA 2017, a forged power of attorney. Stanley's signature shaky, wrong, nothing like the confident script I'd seen on the old photos. Then I found another folder. Costa Rica, villa, a real estate contract. Beachfront condo, 3 bedrooms, pool, ocean view. Purchase price $890,000. Closing date June 1st, 2025. 2 weeks before the land deal closed. Derek was planning to run. Take the money and disappear. I opened the browser history. Gambling sites. Dozens of them. Poker, sports betting, online casinos. Current balance minus $85,000. Derek wasn't just greedy. He was desperate. Buried in debt. betting on a dead father and a piece of land to save him. I pulled out my phone, dialed a number I hadn't used in 3 years. Warren Legal. Mitchell. It's Sterling Brooks. Elder abuse case. Financial exploitation. Fraud. I'm sending you evidence today. Jesus, where are you? Tennessee, just be ready. I hung up, ejected the USB, slipped it into my sock. Then I heard it. A car, close. Derek's truck, pulling into the driveway. I closed the laptop, moved down the hall, took the stairs 2 at a time, hit the kitchen just as the front door slammed. I went out the back, across the yard, into the shed, pulled the door shut, heard the electronic lock click a second later. I sat down on the mattress, let my heart beat slow, checked the USB in my sock. Still there. I had everything I needed. Financial records, insurance fraud, forged documents. Enough to put Derek away for a decade. But I wasn't done yet. Later that afternoon, Derek came to the shed. You got a doctor's appointment. Get up. Vanessa's driving. Don't embarrass me. I followed him to the truck. We drove in silence. 20 minutes through Millbrook to a clinic with a faded sign, Pierce Family Medicine. The waiting room was empty. A nurse led me back, took my vitals. Doctor'll be right in. The door opened. A man in his mid-50s, thinning gray hair, wire-rimmed glasses, white coat, tired eyes. Dr. Gregory Pierce. Stanley, how are we feeling today? Fine. Good. Your son tells me you've been having some memory issues. Let's do a quick cognitive assessment. Can you tell me what year it is? And the president, I gave him the name. Can you count backward from 100 by sevens? 100, 93, 86, 79, 72. He frowned, wrote something on his clipboard. Can you tell me where you are right now? Pierce Family Medicine, Millbrook, Tennessee. His frown deepened. Vanessa's phone rang outside. She stepped into the hall. The moment the door closed, I leaned forward. How much is he paying you? I said. Voice low, calm. Dr. Pierce blinked. Excuse me, Derek, how much did he pay you to declare me incompetent? His face went pale. I don't know what your Medicaid fraud, 2019, falsified disability claims. I know about all of it. One call to the state medical board and your license is gone. His mouth opened, closed. Doesn't matter. What matters is you're going to refuse to sign any evaluation. You're going to tell Derek I'm perfectly healthy. And when the police come asking, you're going to tell them the truth about what he tried to make you do. He stared at me, hands shaking. Do we understand each other? He nodded. Barely. The door opened. Vanessa stepped back in. Everything okay? She asked. Dr. Pierce cleared his throat. Everything's fine. Your father-in-law is in excellent health, cognitively sound. No issues whatsoever. Vanessa's smile faltered. But Derek said, Derek was mistaken. Stanley's doing very well for his age. He looked at me. Aren't you Stanley? I nodded. We walked back to the truck. Vanessa was silent, angry. She slammed the door. What did you say to him? She hissed. Nothing, I said. Bullshit. He was supposed to say you were losing your mind. That was the whole point. I shrugged. She started the engine, peeled out of the parking lot. Derek's going to be pissed, she muttered. I looked out the window, watched the town roll by. Yeah, I said. I'm counting on it. All right. Before I tell you Sterling's next move, I need to know you're still with me. Drop the word justice in the comments below. Let me see that you're invested in this story. Quick heads up, what's coming next includes some fictionalized details for storytelling purposes. If this isn't your thing, you're welcome to stop here and check out something else that fits your style. The morning sun hit the shed door at an angle that made the metal glow. I pushed it open. stepped out into the light. No sneaking, no hiding, just walked straight across the yard toward the house. Derek was on the porch, coffee in one hand, cigarette in the other. He saw me coming, squinted. "Where do you think you're going?" "Shopping," I said. He laughed. Short. Mean. "Shopping. You." "With what money, old man?" I stopped at the bottom of the porch steps, reached into my back pocket, pulled out my wallet, flipped it open. The black card sat in the front slot. American Express. No limit. I held it up. "My money. Always have." Derek's smile faltered. He stared at the card. "That's fake. Try it and see." Vanessa appeared in the doorway. "Where'd you get that?" "It's mine." I slipped the wallet back into my pocket. "I'll be back in a few hours." I turned, started walking. "Hey!" Derek shouted. "You can't just leave." I kept walking, didn't stop, didn't look back. Let them yell. Millbrook wasn't much. Main Street, a diner, a hardware store, and tucked between a laundromat and a barber shop, a small storefront premium car rentals. I walked in. The guy behind the counter looked up from his phone. "Help you? I need a car." "You got an Escalade?" He tapped his computer, frowned. "Yeah, graphite gray. Just came back this morning." "I'll take it." "It's $350 a day." "Fine." I handed him the black card. He swiped it. The machine beeped. Approved. His eyes widened. Okay. Let me get the keys." 10 minutes later, I was behind the wheel of a Cadillac Escalade. Leather seats, tinted windows, enough chrome to blind someone in direct sunlight. I drove 3 blocks to a men's clothing store. Small place, family-owned. A man in his 60s appeared from the back, gray hair, tape measure around his neck. He looked me up and down, took in Stanley's stained flannel-torn jeans, bare feet, and his expression didn't change. "Good morning. How can I help you? I need a suit, shoes, a watch." He didn't ask questions, didn't judge, just measured me, pulled suits off the rack. I picked navy, clean, sharp. He found a light gray shirt, brown leather Oxfords. Showed me a Tag Heuer, stainless steel. Simple, elegant. "This one," I said, $4,000 for the suit. Another $4,800 for the watch. I changed in the dressing room. Left Stanley's rags in a pile on the floor. When I walked out, the old man nodded. "You look like a different man." "That's the idea." I drove back to the house, parked the Escalade right in front and center. The porch was full. Derek, Vanessa, Lorraine, Jessica, all of them staring. Lorraine's mouth fell open. Jessica dropped her phone. Vanessa took a step back. "Where did you—" I didn't answer. Just walked toward them. Slowly, deliberately. Let them see the suit, the shoes, the watch. Derek's face went from red to purple. "What the hell is this?" "I told you, shopping." "Where'd you get that car?" "Rented it." "With what money?" "Mine." His jaw worked, fists clenched. "You don't have money." "Clearly I do." Vanessa stepped forward. "That's not possible. We control your accounts." You control Stanley's accounts," I said. "Not mine." Silence. Derek's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" I smiled. Didn't answer. Just walked past them. Into the house. Up the stairs. I walked down the hall. Pushed open the door to the master bedroom. Derek and Vanessa's room. I sat down on the bed, leaned back, crossed my legs. Derek appeared in the doorway, face twisted. "Get out." "No, this is my room." "Not anymore." I said, "Get out." I stood, slowly, calmly. Unbuckled the watch. Emma appeared in the hallway, peeking around the corner. Eyes wide. I walked to the door, crouched down in front of her. Hold this for me, sweetheart, I said, handed her the watch. I don't want it getting scratched. She took it, carefully, like I'd just handed her the crown jewels. Derek's fists shook. Don't you touch her. I stood, looked him in the eye. I didn't touch her. I asked her to help me. There's a difference. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Vanessa. She shook her head slightly. He stepped back, just an inch. But it was enough. I walked past him, back into the bedroom, closed the door, locked it from the inside. They pounded on it for 10 minutes. Derek, Vanessa, Lorraine shouting threats. I ignored them. Eventually, they gave up. Footsteps retreated. Doors slammed. The house went quiet. Around midnight, I heard voices, low, angry, coming from downstairs. I stood, pressed my ear to the floor. Derek's voice, rough, furious. He's different. Something's wrong. This isn't him. Vanessa's voice, sharp. You think I don't know that he's not acting like your father, like someone else? A pause. You think someone switched them, Vanessa said. I don't know, but we don't have time to figure it out. The party's in 6 days. If he doesn't sign, we lose everything. So what do? We move up the timeline. Another pause. How much faster? Tomorrow night. I'll handle it. You just keep your mouth shut and stay out of the way. Footsteps, a door closing, silence. I sat back down on the bed, pulled the button camera from my collar, checked the recording. Still going, battery at 40%. Enough. I lay back, closed my eyes. Tomorrow night. Derek was going to make his move, faster than I'd expected. But that was fine. The faster he moved, the sloppier he'd get. And sloppy people made mistakes. I'd spent 40 years waiting for people to make mistakes. I could wait one more day. The garage sat at the back of the property, detached. Derek's man cave. The place he went when the world was closing in. Tonight, the lights were on. Music drifted out through the cracked window. Classic rock. Too loud. The kind of loud that meant someone was already drunk. I crouched in the shadows outside, pressed my back against the garage wall, pulled the button camera from my collar, held it up to the window, angled it just right. 2 men inside, Derek, and another guy I didn't recognize. Mid-40s, balding, polo shirt, expensive watch. Richard Donovan, Derek's boss, had to be. I activated the camera. The little red light blinked. Recording. Derek poured another bourbon. Sloppy. Half of it splashed on the table. To the good life, he slurred. Richard lifted his glass. Barely. Sure. You don't sound excited, Rick. I'm excited, just tired. Tired. Derek laughed. Loud. Mean. You're tired. Try dealing with a crazy old man who thinks he owns the place. Try having bills stacked so high you can't see over them. Richard set his cards down. You doing okay, Derek? Okay, I'm about to be better than okay. Derek leaned back, grinned. I'm about to be rich. You know that land my old man's sitting on $6.2 million. Richard blinked. What? State's buying it. Highway expansion project. Market value is $6.2 million, and it's mine. Your dad's, you mean? Derek's smile didn't waver. Same thing. Is it? It will be. Party's in 5 days. May 15th. His signature goes on the deed. Transfer of ownership. Clean. Legal. Then me and Vanessa are gone. Mexico. Beachfront condo. 3 bedrooms. Pool. Ocean view. We close June 1st. Richard frowned. What about your dad? Derek's smile widened. What about him? You just gonna leave him here? Not exactly. The frown deepened. Derek! Relax. Derek poured another drink. It's handled. Unhandled how? Derek leaned forward, lowered his voice. Gas leak. Water heater in the shed's been acting up. Real temperamental. One of these days it's just gonna give out. Tragic accident. Old guy living alone in a shed, no ventilation. By the time anyone finds him, it'll be too late. Richard stared. You're joking. Do I look like I'm joking? Derek, that's smart. That's what it is. I've got a $750 life insurance policy on him. Bought it 2 years ago. Dr. Pierce already agreed to sign the death certificate. No questions, no autopsy. Just a sad, unfortunate accident. Richard set his drink down. I'm talking about getting what's mine, what I've earned. I've taken care of that man for 8 years, so he can sit on $6 million and do nothing with it. I'm done. May 15th, I get that signature. If I don't, he's got a week. Maybe less. Then the problem goes away. Richard pushed back from the table. I don't want to hear this. Why you think I'm the first guy to do something like this? This isn't a hard choice. This is survival. Derek's voice rose, sharp, angry. You don't get it, Rick. You got your cushy job, your nice house. I got nothing but debt and a father who won't move on. So yeah, I'm making a choice. And if you don't like it, you can get the hell out. Richard stood. I'm going. Good. Go. He left. Door slammed. Engine started. Tires on gravel. Derek sat alone at the table, stared at his cards, raised his glass. To early retirement, he said to the empty room. And a father who's worth more gone than he ever was here. He drank. I pulled the camera down, crouched lower. My hands were shaking, not from the cold, from something darker. I'd heard a lot of ugly things in my career. Confessions, lies, people admitting to theft, fraud, infidelity. But I'd never heard a man toast his father's end like it was a business deal. I wanted to go in there, drag him out, make him. No, I took a breath, let it out slow. Not yet. I had what I needed. Every word, every threat, every piece of the plan. All on camera, clear, undeniable. I moved through the shadows, back to the shed, sat down on the mattress, connected the camera to my phone. The video loaded. I hit play. Crystal clear, audio perfect, Derek's face, his voice, every word. I watched it twice. Then I opened my messages, found Mitchell Warren's number, typed got the confession, phase 2, hit send. 3 dots appeared. Then send it to me. Now. I attached the video, sent it. A minute later my phone buzzed. This is enough. I'll have the DA's office ready. When do you want to move? I thought about it. 5 days until the party. 5 days until Derek tried to force Stanley's signature. 5 days until he realized he'd been played. I could end it now, call the police, have Derek arrested tonight. But that wouldn't be enough. Derek had spent 8 years tearing my brother down, stealing from him, erasing him, trying to finish him off. I wanted everyone to see what he was. His neighbors, his co-workers, everyone who'd stood by and done nothing. I wanted Derek exposed, ruined, broken the way he'd tried to break Stanley. I typed back party, May 15th. 3 p.m. I'll have him on stage. Be ready to move by 4:30. 3 dots. Then you're sure. I'm sure. Okay. I'll have police standing by. You play your hand, I'll play mine. I set the phone down, leaned back, closed my eyes. Derek thought he had a week, thought he had time, thought he could force his father to sign and disappear with $6 million. He thought he was in control. But in 5 days, I was going to shatter it in front of everyone he knew. Footsteps outside, light, careful, a whisper. Grandpa, Emma. I moved to the door. I'm here. Are you okay? I heard Daddy yelling. I'm fine. He's really mean when he drinks. I know, sweetheart. Is it almost over? I thought about the video, about Mitchell Warren waiting, About 5 days until Derek lost everything. Almost, I said. Just a little longer. Okay. Good night, Grandpa. Good night, Emma. Her footsteps faded. I sat back down, checked the camera battery. 20%. 5 days. 5 days until Derek stood on a stage and watched his world collapse. I could wait 5 days. The afternoon light filtered through the cracks in the shed walls, thin beams cutting through the dust. I sat on the mattress, back against the wall, counting down. 4 days left until the party. 4 days until Derek stood in front of everyone and signed his own confession. A soft knock on the door. 3 taps. Light. Careful. Grandpa, Emma. I moved to the door. I'm here. A plastic-wrapped sandwich slid under the gap. Turkey and cheese. Still cold. Thank you. A pause. Then quieter. Can I tell you something? Of course. Aunt Jessica's hiding something. I saw her in her room last night. She had papers and money. She was counting it. I crouched lower. What kind of papers? I don't know. Big envelope, brown. She kept looking at it and smiling. Then she put it in her drawer and locked the door. Jessica, Vanessa's younger sister. The one who'd said, "How's this guy still alive?" like it was a joke. Thank you for telling me, I said. Be careful, she's mean. I smiled despite myself. I will. That night I'd find out what she was hiding. The house went quiet just after 11. Lights off, doors closed. The low hum of the television from Derek and Vanessa's room. I picked the shed lock, slipped out into the night, crossed the yard, moved up the stairs. Silent. Practiced. Jessica's room was at the end of the hall. Door closed. No light underneath. I pulled the lockpicks from my pocket. Cheap interior lock. 20 seconds. The door opened with a faint creak. I froze. Listened. Nothing. I stepped inside. The room smelled like cheap perfume and stale cigarettes. Clothes everywhere. A laptop open on the bed. I moved to the dresser. Top drawer. Locked. I picked it. Pulled it open. A manila envelope. Thick. Bulging. I lifted it out. Opened it. Legal documents. Heavy stock. Official-looking seals. Quitclaim deed. Transfer of real property. Grantor Stanley Brooks. Grantee Derek Brooks. Property 342 Oakwood Drive, Millbrook, Tennessee. Approximately 40 acres. Date of transfer May 16, 2025. 1 day after the party. This wasn't the land deal. This was the house. The property. Everything Stanley owned. Derek was taking it all. And the signature at the bottom, Stanley Brooks, was a forgery. Shaky. Wrong. I pulled out the button camera, took photos, the signature, the date, the notary seal. Next page, a notarized affidavit, signed by Melinda Cross, Notary Public State of Tennessee. I'd bet my life Melinda Cross had never seen this document. Third page, a check, not cashed. Made out to Jessica Sullivan, amount $50,000. Memo services rendered, $50,000. For forging the deed, the notary seal. Keeping her mouth shut. I photographed everything. Then I slid the papers back, locked the drawer, left everything exactly as I'd found it, turned toward the door, and froze. A small shadow in the hallway, just outside the doorframe. Emma, she stood there in her nightgown, bare feet, eyes wide. I stepped into the hall, closed the door, knelt down. You should be asleep, I said softly. I heard you walking. She looked at me, really looked. You're not my grandpa, she said. My chest tightened. What makes you say that? Your eyes. They're the same as his, but they're not sad. Grandpa's eyes were always sad. Yours aren't, and you don't talk like him. And when Daddy yells at you, you don't look scared. Grandpa was always scared. Smart kid. Too smart. Are you going to tell anyone? I asked. She shook her head. No. Why not? Because you're helping him, aren't you? I looked at her. 9 years old, living in a house full of people who'd tried to erase her grandfather, and she'd been the only one who brought him water, who called him sunshine, who gave him a phone so he could call for help. Yes, I said, I'm helping him. Where is he? Somewhere safe, resting, getting better. Is he coming back? Soon. Very soon. And when he does, you'll never have to be afraid again. Her eyes filled with tears. She didn't cry, just blinked them back. Hard. Promise. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the photo. 2 7-year-old boys, arms around each other, matching grins. I handed it to her. That's your grandpa, I said, pointing to the boy on the left. And that's me, Uncle Sterling. We're twins, and I came to help him. Do you understand? She looked at the photo, at me, back at the photo. Then she nodded. Can you keep this a secret just a few more days? I can. Good, because if your daddy finds out, it won't be safe. For you or for me. Okay. I pulled her into a hug. She wrapped her arms around my neck, held on tight. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For coming. My throat closed. I held her tighter. You're very brave, Emma. You know that. She pulled back, looked at me with those serious, too old eyes. So are you. I smiled, stood, ruffled her hair gently. Go back to bed, and remember. I won't tell. She turned, walked back to her room, closed the door softly. I stood in the hallway, let out a slow breath. A 9-year-old girl had figured out what an entire family had missed. She'd seen through the disguise, and she'd chosen to keep the secret, because she wanted her grandfather back. I walked back downstairs, out the back door, across the yard, into the shed, sat down, pulled out my phone, opened the photos of the forged deed, the notary seal, the $50,000 check, sent them to Mitchell Warren. 3 dots appeared immediately. This is fraud, felony forgery, conspiracy. Add it to the pile. I typed back. How big is the pile now? Big enough to bury him. I set the phone down, leaned back, closed my eyes. 4 days. 4 days until Derek stood in front of his friends and family and watched me pull the mask off. Watched Stanley walk through the door. Watched the police take him away in handcuffs. 4 days until Emma got her grandfather back. I could wait 4 days. The trucks arrived just after dawn. White tent, folding chairs, a portable generator. Derek stood on the porch directing traffic like a general planning a campaign. I watched from the shed window. Tomorrow. Tomorrow it would all come apart. By noon the tent was up. Rows of chairs, a small stage, tables for food, a bar in the corner. 60 guests expected. Friends, neighbors, co-workers, all of them about to witness Derek's world collapse. Late afternoon, Derek came to the shed, didn't knock, just opened the door. Inside, now! I followed him into the living room. He handed me a glass. Whiskey. Neat. Drink. I drank. Tomorrow, he said. 3 o'clock. You sign that deed. Transfer of property. Stanley Brooks to Derek Brooks. In front of everyone. Clean. Legal. You understand? I understand. Yeah, and you're not going to make a scene. You're going to smile, sign, shake my hand, then back to the shed until I figure out what to do with you. I nodded. He leaned closer. If you try anything, you'll never leave that shed again. Are we clear? Clear. Vanessa appeared in the doorway, looked me up and down, wrinkled her nose. He can't wear that tomorrow. Derek frowned. Wear what? That. She gestured at Stanley's stained flannel. He looks like he sleeps under a bridge. People are taking pictures. It's going on social media. I'm not having that. I set the glass down. I have something. They stared. You have something, Vanessa repeated. Upstairs. I walked past them, up the stairs, into the closet, pulled out the navy suit, the one I'd bought in Millbrook, still pressed, still perfect. I changed, slowly, buttoned the shirt, adjusted the tie, slipped into the jacket, looked at myself in the mirror. I didn't look like Stanley anymore. I looked like someone who'd come to collect a debt. I walked back downstairs. Vanessa's mouth fell open. Lorraine dropped her coffee mug. It shattered on the tile. Derek's face went pale. Where did you... You said wear something nice. I'm wearing something nice. His jaw worked, fists clenched. He looked at Vanessa. She shook her head slightly. Fine, he said through his teeth. Wear it. But tomorrow you sign. Tomorrow, I agreed. I stepped outside. Needed air. Needed to see the trap one more time before it closed. The tent glowed in the late sun. Workers were packing up their tools. A few neighbors had wandered over. Curious. One of them saw me, did a double take. Eleanor Whitmore, 71, silver hair, leaning on a cane. She'd brought Stanley casseroles after Ruth died. Tried to check on him until Derek made it clear she wasn't welcome. She walked over, slowly. Stanley, I turned. Hello, Eleanor. She stared. My lord, you look different. Different how? I don't know. Just, you seem taller, stronger. Are you all right? If something's wrong, you can tell me. I know Derek can be difficult. I smiled, put a hand on her shoulder. I've never felt better, Eleanor. She frowned, studied my face like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Just watch tomorrow, I said. Everything's going to be fine. She didn't look convinced, but she nodded. If you say so. I do. She patted my hand, walked away, glanced back once. Still uncertain. I watched her go. Then I turned back to the tent. Evening. The workers were gone. The tent stood empty. Lights strung overhead. A projector set up near the stage. Derek had rented it for a slideshow pictures of him and Vanessa. Their wedding, their trips, their perfect life. I walked through the tent, alone, checked the projector, the speakers, the laptop connected to it all. I pulled out my phone, opened the video from 3 nights ago. Derek's confession, gas leak, $750 insurance, worth more gone than here. Connected my phone to the laptop, tested it. The video played. Crystal clear, audio perfect. I smiled, disconnected, deleted the connection history, left everything exactly as I'd found it. Tomorrow Derek would think he was showing wedding photos. He was wrong. I walked back to the shed, pulled out my phone, dialed. Mitchell Warren picked up on the first ring. Sterling, tomorrow, 3 o'clock the party starts. I need you here by 4:30. Bring police. Bring whoever you need. You're sure? I'm sure. And once you do this, there's no going back. Good. That's the point. A pause. What's the signal? You'll know it when you see it. He laughed. Dry. All right. We'll be there. 4:30. Don't do anything stupid before then. No promises. I hung up, sat on the mattress, stared at the wall, at Emma's carved words. Emma's sunshine. Tomorrow she'd get her grandfather back, and Derek would lose everything. Footsteps outside. The door opened. Derek, holding a paper, a pen. Here. He shoved them at me. Practice. I took them. It was the deed. Official. Printed on legal stock. Notarized space at the bottom. Waiting for my signature. Transfer of property Stanley Brooks to Derek Brooks. Derek leaned forward, watching. Tomorrow, he said. 3 o'clock. You sign this in front of everyone, nice and smooth. Then it's done. And you go back to the shed until I'm ready to move you. I picked up the pen, held it over the signature line. Derek smiled. Confident. Certain he'd won. I looked up, met his eyes. and I smiled. Cold. Empty. The kind of smile that said you have no idea what's coming. "I'll see you tomorrow," I said. His smile faltered. Just for a second. Uncertain. Then he turned, walked out, locked the door behind him. I set the pen down. Looked at the deed. At the blank signature line. Tomorrow Derek would ask me to sign this, in front of 60 people, his friends, his neighbors, his boss, and I was going to say no. And then I was going to show them exactly who Derek Brooks really was. One day left. I could wait one more day. The trap is set. Tomorrow is the day. Derek has no idea what's coming. Before I reveal what happens at that party, type 15 in the comments if you're still here, because May 15th is about to become the most important day of this story. Quick note. What follows contains fictionalized details for dramatic effect. If you'd prefer to skip it, feel free to exit now and explore other videos. The backyard was full by 3. More than 60 people crammed under the white tent. String lights glowed overhead. Tables lined with shrimp cocktail and roast beef. A bartender pouring champagne. Laughter, music, the hum of voices. It looked like a celebration. It was about to become a funeral. I sat at the family table. Front row. Emma beside me. She'd been there since the first guests arrived. Hadn't let go of my hand. "Are you scared?" she whispered. "No, I am." I squeezed her hand. "You don't have to be. This will be over soon." Derek stood near the entrance, greeting people, shaking hands, big smile, loud voice. Vanessa beside him in an expensive dress, her hair done, makeup flawless, both of them glowing, polished. Lorraine held court at the bar. Jessica was on her phone, scrolling, bored. A man in a cheap suit walked past, glanced at me, did a double take. Richard Donovan, Derek's boss, the man who'd heard the confession 3 nights ago. He looked pale, nervous. He should have stayed home. The speeches started around 3:30. Derek clinked a glass. The crowd quieted. He climbed onto the small stage, microphone in hand. Screen behind him blank for now. Thank you all for coming," Derek said. Voice smooth, practiced. "Vanessa and I are so grateful to have you here to celebrate 10 years of marriage." Applause, whistles. Derek smiled, waited for it to die down. "Before we get to the fun part, I want to thank the people who made this possible. My beautiful wife, Vanessa. My incredible mother-in-law, Lorraine. My sister-in-law, Jessica. And most importantly, my father, Stanley." The crowd turned, looked at me. Derek's smile widened. "Dad's been through a lot these past few years. Losing Mom, getting older. But he's still here, still fighting. And today, I want to honor him." He gestured toward me. "Dad, come up here." I stood, slowly. Emma's hand slipped from mine. "You'll be okay," I whispered. She nodded, eyes wide, scared. I walked toward the stage, every step deliberate. The crowd watched. Some smiled, some looked confused. I climbed the 3 steps. Stood beside Derek under the lights. He put his arm around my shoulder, pulled me close. "I love this man," Derek said into the microphone. Voice thick, emotional. He raised me, taught me everything I know. And today I want to give him something he deserves. Peace of mind. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded paper, opened it, held it up. "This is a transfer of property, from my father to me. Just a legal formality so he doesn't have to worry about taxes or upkeep. All he has to do is sign." Applause. A few people nodded approvingly. Derek turned to me, handed me the paper, pulled out a pen. "Just a signature, Dad, right here." I took the paper, looked at it. The deed. Official. Blank line waiting for my name. I looked up, at the crowd, At Lorraine smiling, at Jessica scrolling, at Richard Donovan staring at his shoes, at Emma, watching me, waiting. I looked back at Derek. He was smiling, confident, certain he'd won. I folded the paper, set it on the podium. I have a better idea, I said. Derek blinked. What? I took the microphone from his hand. Gently. He was too surprised to resist. I turned to the crowd. Gee, before I sign anything, I think everyone here should know what we're really celebrating. Derek's smile faltered. Dad, what are you? Let's show them. I reached into my jacket, pulled out the remote. Derek's eyes went wide. Wait! I pressed the button. The screen behind us flickered. Came to life, and there he was. Derek, sitting at a poker table, drunk, red-faced, glass in hand. His voice filled the speakers, loud, clear. The old man's sitting on 6.2 million and doesn't even know it. The crowd went silent. Derek lunged for the laptop. I stepped in front of him, blocked him. He hissed. No. On screen, Derek kept talking. My highway project closes in August. I transfer the deed and I'm gone. Mexico. Vanessa's already picked out the condo. Gasps, whispers, people pulling out their phones. Recording. Richard Donovan's voice. What about your dad? Derek on screen laughed, raised his glass. Gas leak, water heater malfunction, tragic accident. I've got a $750 life insurance policy ready. Dr. Pierce'll sign the death certificate. No questions. The backyard erupted. Shock, horror, confusion. Vanessa stood, face white. Turn it off! Derek tried to shove past me. I held my ground. Get out of my way. No. On screen, Derek raised his glass one more time. New to early retirement, and a father who's worth more gone than he ever was here. He drank. The screen went black. The backyard fell silent. 60 people staring. Phones out. Recording. Witnesses. I turned to Derek. He stood frozen. Face drained of color. Mouth open. Speechless. I leaned close. Spoke into the microphone. Loud enough for everyone to hear. I'm not signing anything. Derek's eyes flicked to mine. Wild. Desperate. One more thing, I said. I reached up. Pulled off the flannel overshirt I'd been wearing. Let it drop to the stage, underneath the navy suit. Pressed. Clean. I straightened. Stood taller. Let the posture shift. Let the act fall away. I'm not Stanley Brooks, I said. The crowd murmured. Confused. My name is Sterling Brooks, Stanley's twin brother. And for the past 10 days, I've been living in that shed, gathering evidence, recording confessions, watching my brother's son try to erase him. I turned, looked directly at Derek. You locked your father in a cage, starved him, stole from him, tried to finish him off for a piece of land and an insurance payout. You thought no one was watching. You thought no one would come. I stepped closer. You were wrong. The silence lasted 3 seconds, maybe 4. Then the backyard exploded. Voices, shouting, gasps, chairs scraping, people standing, pulling out phones, pointing them at the stage, at Derek, at me, recording everything. Derek's face went from white to red. He lunged toward the laptop. I stepped in front of him, blocked his path. Move, he hissed. No. I said move. He shoved me, hard. I didn't budge. It's too late, I said. Quiet, calm. Copies are already with the police, the district attorney, a dozen news outlets. You can't stop this. His eyes went wild. He looked at the crowd, at the phones, at the neighbors recording every word. This is fake, he shouted. He's lying. That video is edited en totito. No one believed him. Vanessa ran toward the stage, heels clicking, makeup smeared. Turn it off. Derek, make him turn it off. I pressed the remote again. The screen lit up. A second video. Different angle. Different night. Jessica, sitting at a kitchen table, an envelope in front of her. Papers spread out. Derek's voice off camera. 50,000, cash. You notarize the deed, backdate it, and keep your mouth shut. Jessica on screen smiled, picked up a pen. 50,000, and I'll notarize anything you want. The crowd turned, looked at Jessica. She stood near the bar, frozen, eyes wide. She bolted, tried to run for the back gate, heels sinking into the grass, stumbling. Frank Morris, the neighbor from 3 houses down, 70 years old, built like a linebacker, stepped in front of her. Crossed his arms. I don't think so, miss. Jessica stopped, looked around, trapped. She dropped to her knees, started crying. I didn't know he said it was just paperwork. No one moved. I turned back to Derek. He stood at the edge of the stage, shaking, fists clenched, breathing hard. You did this, he said, voice low, venomous. You ruined everything. No, I said. You did. 8 years ago, when you decided your father was worth more gone than here. He lunged at me. I sidestepped. Let him stumble past. Let the crowd see him out of control, unhinged, exactly the man the video showed. 2 men from the crowd, neighbors, friends of Stanley's, grabbed Derek's arms, held him back. Let me go, Derek screamed. Get off me! I turned to the crowd, took the microphone. My brother Stanley Brooks has been held prisoner in a shed behind this house for 4 years. Before that, he was financially exploited for 8 years. His son stole over $400,000 from his pension and Social Security, forged legal documents, bribed a doctor, attempted to harm him through gas exposure, all for a piece of land worth $6.2 million. Murmurs, gasps. Someone shouted, Where is he? Where's Stanley? I looked toward the back gate, nodded once. It opened, and there he was. Stanley, thin, gaunt, limping, leaning on a cane, but alive, awake. Here, the crowd parted. Let him through. He walked slowly, every step an effort, but his eyes were clear, focused, fixed on Derek. Emma saw him first. Grandpa, she tore across the yard, crashed into him, wrapped her arms around his waist, sobbed into his shirt. Stanley's hand came up, rested on her head, stroked her hair. It's okay, sunshine, he whispered. It's okay now. The crowd broke into applause. Not loud, not celebratory, quiet, relieved. Stanley looked up, looked at me. I stepped down from the stage, walked to him. We stood face to face, identical, mirrors. You came, he said. I told you I would. He smiled, faint, tired. Thank you. I pulled him into a hug. Careful, gentle. He felt like he might break. You survived, I said. That's all you, not me. He held on, tight. Behind us, sirens wailed, growing louder. 2 police cars pulled up. Doors opened. Detective Sarah Morgan stepped out. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, uniform pressed. She walked into the backyard, badge out. 3 officers behind her. Derek Brooks. Derek was still being held by the 2 neighbors. He stopped struggling, looked at her, face drained of color. Aichai, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse, financial exploitation, and attempted harm. You have the right to remain silent. She cuffed him, read him his rights. The crowd watched in silence. Vanessa tried to run, made it 5 steps before another officer stopped her, cuffed her too. I didn't do anything. This is his fault, Derek's fault. Lorraine didn't run, just stood there, face gray, silent. An officer walked up, cuffed her without a word. Jessica was still on her knees, crying, begging, "Please, I didn't know, I'm sorry." They cuffed her too. 4 people, 4 sets of handcuffs, 4 lives destroyed in front of 60 witnesses. Derek was led past Stanley, stopped, looked at him. For a moment no one spoke. Then Stanley took a step forward, looked his son in the eye. "Oh, you're my son," he said, voice shaking. "I raised you. I loved you. I would have given you anything, and you locked me away, hoping I'd never come back." Derek's mouth opened, closed. No words came out. Stanley's voice broke. "Why?" Derek looked away. "Because you were in the way," he muttered. Stanley flinched, like he'd been hit. I stepped forward, put my hand on his shoulder. "What? That's enough," I said. The officer pulled Derek toward the car. He twisted back, looked at us. "You'll regret this. Both of you, I'll get out, The car door slammed, cut him off. Vanessa was shoved into the second car. Lorraine into the third. Jessica into the fourth. The sirens started up. The cars pulled away, disappeared down the street. The backyard went quiet. Mitchell Warren walked up to me, shook my hand. "Hell of a show," he said. "It wasn't a show." "I know. That's why it worked." He turned to Stanley. "Mr. Brooks, we need your statement, but it can wait until tomorrow." Stanley nodded, didn't speak, couldn't. Eleanor Whitmore pushed through the crowd, tears streaming. She took Stanley's hands. "I'm so sorry, I should have known." "It's not your fault," Stanley said softly. "I should have known." "No one knew, that's how he wanted it." She hugged him, careful. One by one, people came forward. Neighbors, friends, apologizing, crying, offering help. He thanked them, one by one, exhausted, overwhelmed. Emma never let go of his hand. I stood back, watched. Let him have this. Let him be seen. Let him be real again. Mitchell walked over. "You did good. We're not done yet." "No, but the hard part's over." I looked at Stanley, at Emma holding his hand, at the neighbors surrounding him, protecting him. "Yeah," I said, "it is." The next morning, the Millbrook police station smelled like burnt coffee and old paperwork. Stanley and I sat side by side in a small interview room, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. My brother looked smaller than he had yesterday. Thinner, more fragile, like the weight of 8 years was finally catching up to him now that the adrenaline had worn off. Detective Sarah Morgan sat across from us, laptop open, recording device blinking red. Mitchell Warren stood by the window, briefcase on the table, USB drive in hand. "To Mr. Brooks," Detective Morgan said, looking at Stanley. "I need you to walk me through everything. Start with 2017. Stanley's hands trembled. I reached over and gripped his wrist. He glanced at me, took a breath, and began. "My wife Ruth passed away in March 2017. Cancer. After the funeral, Derek moved back in, said he wanted to help. Within a month, he'd taken my phone, changed the house number, cut off the internet. I couldn't call anyone, not even Sterling." Mitchell stepped forward. "We have bank records showing systematic diversion of funds beginning April 2017. Stanley's pension $2,400 a month and his Social Security benefits $1,850 a month were both rerouted to an account controlled by Derek Brooks." Detective Morgan typed rapidly. "That's over $4,000 a month. Ha'titiku. $41,000 a year," Mitchell said. "For 8 years. Total theft approximately $410,000. Stanley's voice cracked. "I didn't know. Derek told me the checks were being deposited. He gave me $20 a week for groceries. Said the rest was going to taxes, medical bills, repairs." "And the confinement?" Morgan asked gently. 4 years ago, May 2021, Derek locked me in the shed. Said I was too old to be wandering around causing trouble. The door had an electronic lock. No bathroom, a mattress, one light bulb. Stanley's voice dropped to a whisper. Sometimes he'd forget to bring food. Sometimes the water bottle would be empty for 2 days. I felt my jaw tighten. I'd seen the shed. I'd slept in it. But hearing Stanley describe 4 years of it, 4 years of isolation, hunger, fear, made my blood run cold. Mitchell pulled out a folder. Revengestories. We also have evidence of a forged power of attorney dated 2017, a fake quitclaim deed dated May 16, 2025, and a life insurance policy worth $750,000, purchased in December 2023 with Derek Brooks as the sole beneficiary. Mom. They were going to stage a gas leak, I said. Make it look like an accident. Collect the insurance and sell the land for $6.2 million. Detective Morgan's eyes hardened. We have the video confession. Derek Brooks, Richard Donovan discussions of a tragic accident timeline for a Mexican condo, the whole thing. She clicked her pen. Here's where we stand. Derek Brooks is being charged with conspiracy to commit harm, elder abuse, financial exploitation, fraud, and forgery. Vanessa Brooks, conspiracy, elder abuse, and fraud. Lorraine Sullivan, conspiracy and accessory. Jessica Sullivan, forgery, bribery, and conspiracy. Stanley stared at the table. I just want it to be over. How it will be, Mitchell said. But we need to document everything. The DA wants medical records, financial statements, witness testimony. This is going to take time. An hour later, a doctor arrived. Not Dr. Pierce, but an independent physician brought in by the state. He examined Stanley in a side room while I waited outside, pacing the narrow hallway. When he emerged, his expression was grim. Severe malnutrition, he told Detective Morgan. Muscle atrophy, infected sores on his feet, signs of prolonged dehydration, and significant psychological trauma, likely PTSD. Morgan nodded, making notes. We'll add that to the file. By noon, we were done. Derek, Vanessa, Lorraine, and Jessica were all being held without bail pending arraignment. Mitchell said the DA was confident video evidence, financial records, medical reports. It was an open and shut case. Stanley and I walked out into the sunlight. He blinked, shielding his eyes like he'd forgotten what daylight felt like. What happens now? He asked quietly. Now you rest, I said. We find you a place to stay. We get you healthy. And we let the system do its job. He stopped on the sidewalk, staring at his hands. Sterling, I don't have anything. No money. No house, no... But you have me, I said firmly. And you have Emma. And you have that land, $6.2 million worth of land, that Derek never got his hands on. Stanley's eyes filled with tears. I don't even have a bank account anymore. Derek closed it. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my wallet, and flipped it open. Inside was a crumpled receipt from the gas station and a few bills. I pulled out a 20, folded it, and pressed it into Stanley's palm. Then I paused, looked at him, and pulled out another $5. $15, I said. It's not much, but it's yours. No one's taking it. No one's stealing it. It's a start. Stanley stared at the bills in his hand, his shoulders shaking. Then he laughed, a broken, breathless sound. $15, he whispered. After 8 years. $15. I put my arm around his shoulders. We'll get the rest back. Every penny. I promise. He nodded, clutching the money like it was a lifeline. As we walked toward my truck, I glanced back at the police station. Inside, Derek was sitting in a cell, facing decades in prison. Vanessa, Lorraine, Jessica, all of them trapped by their own greed. But out here in the sunlight, Stanley was free. And $15 had never felt like so much. A week after the arrests, Stanley and I stood in the living room of 342 Oakwood Drive garbage bags piled by the door. The house smelled like stale beer and cigarette smoke, years of Derek's occupation layered into the walls. Stanley moved slowly, methodically, picking up empty pizza boxes and crushed soda cans. He didn't say much. He didn't need to. Emma sat on the stairs watching us. She'd been quiet since the party. Not withdrawn exactly, just careful. Like she was still learning what it felt like to be safe. "Grandpa," she asked softly, "is Daddy coming back?" Stanley froze, trash bag in hand. I walked over and crouched beside her. "No, sweetheart," I said. "Your father is in a place where people who hurt others have to stay. For a long time." She nodded slowly. "Good." The word was so small, so certain it broke something in my chest. That afternoon, Mitchell Warren called. His voice was clipped professional. "Plea deals are off the table. Derek, Vanessa, Lorraine, and Jessica all rejected the DA's offers. They're going to trial." "When?" I asked. "Now, September. Judge Brennan set the date this morning. You'll need to prepare Stanley and Emma for testimony." I glanced at my brother, who was staring out the window, lost in thought. "He'll be ready." "There's something else," Mitchell said. "Derek made a supervised call from the county jail yesterday. He tried to contact Stanley. The call was recorded." My jaw tightened. "What did he say?" "The threats, vague but clear enough. I'm sending you the transcript." When the email arrived, I read it twice. Then I showed it to Stanley. "You think you won, old man? I've got friends, people who owe me. You'll never be safe. Neither will that little girl." Stanley's hands trembled as he read. "He's still trying to scare me. He's failing," I said. "Every word he just said is witness intimidation. We'll add it to the charges." Stanley looked at me, eyes hollow. "What if he's serious? What if he does have people? Then they'll go to jail too," I said firmly. "Derek's finished Stanley. He just doesn't know it yet." But the call rattled him. For the next few days, he jumped at every sound: the mailman, a car door, a neighbor's dog barking. I installed new locks on the doors, set up a security camera by the porch. It wasn't much, but it helped. On June 3rd, everything exploded again. I was in the kitchen making sandwiches when I heard the doorbell. Emma ran to answer it before I could stop her. When I reached the door, my blood went cold. Lorraine Sullivan stood on the porch, arms crossed, gray hair, pulled back eyes, sharp as broken glass. She was out on bail, $10,000 posted by some distant cousin on Emma. She said, her voice honey-sweet and venomous. "Come here, sweetheart. Grandma needs to talk to you." Emma stepped back closer to me. "No." Lorraine's smile tightened. "Your daddy's in trouble because your grandfather lied. Don't you want to help your daddy?" "My grandfather didn't lie," Emma said, voice steady. "I saw everything. I was there." I put my hand on Emma's shoulder. "You need to leave Lorraine. Now." She ignored me, eyes locked on Emma. "You're just a child. You don't understand what's happening. When your daddy gets out, he's going to take you back. And we're going to be a family again." "Derek's not getting out," I said coldly. "And you're violating a no-contact order just by standing here." Lorraine's face twisted. "You think you can keep me from my granddaughter? I have rights. Grandparents' rights. I'll take you to court if I have to." Before I could respond, Stanley appeared behind me. He looked smaller than Lorraine, frailer, but his voice was steady. "You locked me in a shed for 4 years," he said quietly. "You stole my money. You watched your daughter and son-in-law plan to harm me, and you did nothing. You have no rights." Lorraine's mouth opened-closed. For a moment she looked almost human, almost guilty. Then her expression hardened. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "All of you." She turned and walked down the driveway. I pulled out my phone and dialed Mitchell Warren. "She was just here," I said. "Lorraine. She tried to intimidate Emma, threatened to sue for custody." Mitchell's reply was ice. I'll have a warrant issued within the hour. She's done. By evening, Lorraine was back in custody. No bail this time. Mitchell called to confirm she'd violated the no-contact order, attempted witness tampering, and made credible threats. The judge revoked her release. She'd stay locked up until trial. Stanley and I sat on the porch that night, watching fireflies blink in the dark. Emma was asleep upstairs. Finally, Mitchell had arranged for a child psychologist to visit twice a week. The woman said Emma was resilient, but she'd need time. I want to raise her, Stanley said suddenly. Permanently. I want to be her legal guardian. I looked at him. You'd be a good father to her. Can we do it? He asked. Legally? I thought about Derek locked up. Vanessa facing 7 years minimum. Lorraine and Jessica conspirators in a scheme to harm an old man for money. None of them were fit to raise a child. We'll petition the court, I said. Mitchell can file the paperwork. With Derek and Vanessa both facing prison time, you'll have a strong case. Stanley nodded, eyes distant. I just want her to be safe, to have a normal life. She will, I promised. We'll make sure of it. We sat in silence for a while. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Mitchell. Call me, it's urgent. I stepped inside, dialed him back. What's wrong? Mitchell's voice was calm, but I could hear the weight behind it. There's someone else with a claim to Emma. Someone who might complicate things. My stomach dropped. Who? Stanley's daughter, Linda. I went still. Linda, the daughter Stanley hadn't seen in 6 years. The daughter who'd left Emma with Derek and Vanessa and disappeared. She's alive, I asked. She is. And she just contacted my office. She wants custody of Emma. I closed my eyes, exhaled slowly. When? She's flying in next week. We'll need to meet with her, assess her situation, and figure out what's best for Emma. He paused. This could get complicated, Sterling. Everything about this case is complicated, I muttered. One more thing won't break us. But as I hung up and walked back outside, I couldn't shake the weight settling in my chest. Stanley wanted to raise Emma. Linda, wherever she'd been, wanted her daughter back. And Emma, caught in the middle, deserved stability. I sat back down beside my brother. He looked at me, concern flickering in his eyes. What did Mitchell say? I hesitated. Then I told him. Stanley's face went pale. Linda, after 6 years, she's coming back, I said quietly. And she wants Emma. Stanley stared at the dark street, his hands gripping the armrest. Linda, after 6 years, she's coming back, I said quietly. And she wants to be part of Emma's life. Stanley's voice trembled. Emma's my granddaughter. Derek's in prison. Vanessa's facing 7 years. What does Linda want? She wants to help, I said. She's Emma's aunt, and after 6 years of running, she wants to come home. Stanley nodded slowly. Then we meet her. We listen. And we figure out what's best for Emma. Because at the end of the day, it wasn't about Derek or Vanessa or Lorraine or even us. It was about Emma, and she deserved a family that would protect her no matter what. On June 10th, I sat in Mitchell Warren's office watching the second hand crawl across the wall clock. Stanley was beside me, hands folded, jaw tight. He hadn't slept much the night before. Neither had I. She'll be here in 5 minutes, Mitchell said, glancing at his laptop. Linda Brooks, clean record, steady employment. She's been working as a registered nurse in Portland, Oregon for the past 4 years. I'd already done my own digging. Linda Brooks, 42 years old, born and raised in Millbrook, left Tennessee in 2019. Before that, she'd been working part-time at a local clinic. Then one day she vanished. Why did she leave? I asked. Mitchell pulled a file from his desk. She says Derek threatened her. Told her if she didn't disappear, she'd end up in the same shed as her father. Stanley flinched. She knew I was in danger. She suspected Mitchell said carefully. But Derek had control of the house, the money, everything. Linda felt powerless. Stanley's voice was barely a whisper. She's my daughter. She should have called someone. Derek isolated her the same way he isolated you, I said quietly. Fear is a weapon. He used it on both of you. The door opened. A woman stepped in thin auburn hair, pulled into a loose ponytail, dark circles under her eyes. She wore jeans, a plain gray sweater, and sneakers. When she saw Stanley, her face crumpled. "Dad," she whispered. Stanley stood slowly. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Linda crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him, sobbing into his shoulder. "I'm so sorry," she choked out. "I should have stayed. I should have fought. You're here now." Stanley said, his own voice breaking. "That's what matters." She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I didn't know what Derek was doing to you. I swear. I thought you were okay. I didn't know he locked you away. He made sure no one knew," I said, handing her a tissue. "That's how predators work." Linda turned to me. "You must be Sterling. Dad's brother. The one who saved him." "I just did what family does," I said. She shook her head. "I should have done it. But Derek, he said if I came back, if I called anyone, he'd make sure I never saw Dad again. I believed him. I was a coward." "You were scared," Stanley said gently. "There's a difference." Mitchell gestured to the chairs. "Let's sit. We need to discuss Emma." Linda nodded, sinking into a seat. "How is she? Does she hate me?" "She doesn't hate you," I said. "She barely remembers you. She was 3 when you left. She's 9 now." Linda's hands twisted in her lap. "I want to see her. I want to be part of her life. I'm her aunt. I'm family. And now that Derek and Vanessa are locked up, Emma needs someone." Stanley looked at her. "I'm petitioning for custody. Emma's my granddaughter. I'm her legal guardian until the court decides otherwise." Linda nodded quickly. "I'm not trying to take her away from you, Dad. I just want to help. I want to be here for both of you." Mitchell made a note. "We'll file a petition for Stanley as primary guardian. Linda, you can request visitation rights as Emma's aunt. If you stay in Millbrook, that would strengthen your case." "I'm not leaving," Linda said firmly. "Not again." That afternoon, we brought Emma to the house. Linda waited in the living room, pacing. When Emma walked in, she stopped. "When Aunt Linda," Emma said quietly. Linda dropped to her knees. "Hi, sweetheart. Do you remember me?" Emma hesitated, then nodded slowly. "A little. You used to give me ice cream." Linda laughed through her tears. "I did. You always wanted chocolate." Emma stepped closer. "Why did you leave?" Linda's face tightened. "Your father, my brother, he scared me. And I was wrong to leave. I should have stayed and protected you and Grandpa. I'm sorry, Emma." Emma looked at her for a long moment. Then she walked forward and hugged her. Linda held her, sobbing quietly. Stanley and I stood in the doorway. I felt something loosen in my chest. "She's a good kid," I said quietly. "She deserves better than what Derek gave her," Stanley replied. Over the next few days, the case exploded into the national news. A $180 million highway project linked to elder abuse scheme. Tennessee man imprisoned for 4 years by his own son. The article was everywhere: cable news, social media, newspapers. My phone started ringing. Reporters from Nashville, Memphis, even a producer from a true crime podcast. I blocked every number. "The public has court records," I said flatly. "That's all they need. This family has been through enough." Mitchell called a few days later. "The Tennessee Department of Child Protective Services wants to use Emma's testimony anonymously as a training video to help caseworkers recognize elder abuse in families." Stanley looked at me. I looked at Emma, who was coloring at the kitchen table with Linda. "If it helps someone else," Stanley said quietly, "then yes." On June 18th, Mitchell sent another update. New land appraisal, $6.35 million. The publicity had driven up interest. What had been worth $6.2 million in May was now worth more. Stanley stared at the number. All of this suffering. Over money. Over greed, I corrected. Money's just a tool. Derek weaponized it. The same day, we received notice from the court. Trial date, August 15th, 2025. Derek's new lawyer had filed a motion claiming entrapment. He argued that I'd illegally recorded Derek manipulated the situation and violated his rights by impersonating Stanley. Mitchell wasn't worried. Entrapment requires coercion. You didn't force Derek to commit a crime, you documented crimes he'd already committed. Judge Brennan will see through this. One evening, the four of us sat on the porch, Stanley, Linda, Emma, and me. Fireflies blinked in the warm June air. Emma was leaning against Linda, half asleep. "What happens after the trial?" Linda asked quietly. "We sell the land," Stanley said. $6.35 million. After taxes, legal fees, and everything else, we'll walk away with about $4.8 million. Linda's eyes widened. "Dad!" "It's for you and Emma," Stanley said. "You'll never have to run again. You'll never have to be afraid." "I don't want the money," Linda said softly. "I just want my family back." Stanley smiled. "You have both." I looked out at the quiet street, thinking about Derek locked in a cell, Vanessa waiting for sentencing, Lorraine and Jessica facing their own reckonings. They'd gambled everything on greed, and they'd lost. But here on this porch, with a father and daughter reunited, and a 9-year-old girl finally safe, we'd won. Not money, not revenge. Family. On August 15th, 2025, the Millbrook County Courthouse was packed. I sat in the front row beside Stanley and Linda. Emma was in a side room with a child advocate waiting to testify. Mitchell Warren stood at the prosecutor's table, files stacked in front of him. Across the aisle sat Derek, Vanessa, Lorraine, and Jessica, each with their own attorney. Derek looked smaller in his orange jumpsuit, thinner. His face was pale, jaw tight. He didn't look at us. Judge Catherine Brennan entered. Mid-50s, silver hair, pulled back, sharp eyes. She took her seat, adjusted her glasses, and looked out at the courtroom. I said, "This court is now in session. The people versus Derek Brooks, Vanessa Brooks, Lorraine Sullivan, and Jessica Sullivan. Let's begin." Mitchell called me to the stand first. I placed my hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Then I sat facing the jury, 12 ordinary people who would decide whether justice meant anything in this town. Mitchell asked me to explain the identity swap. I kept it simple. My brother Stanley called me on May 3rd, 2025. He told me his son Derek was planning to harm him. He asked for my help. I drove from Oregon to Tennessee, met Stanley at a gas station, and we swapped clothes. With his permission, I returned to his house as him. My goal was to gather evidence and report it to law enforcement. Gregory Hale. Derek's lawyer stood. "So you impersonated your brother. You recorded him without consent. Isn't that entrapment?" "No," I said calmly. "Entrapment requires coercion. I didn't force your client to commit a crime. I documented crimes he'd already committed: 4 years of unlawful confinement, 8 years of financial exploitation, conspiracy to cause harm." Judge Brennan nodded. "The court accepts the evidence. Mr. Hale, your objection is overruled." Next, Emma testified. The courtroom was cleared. Only the judge, jury attorneys, and a child advocate remained. I waited outside with Stanley and Linda. Stanley's hands were shaking. "She's going to be okay," Linda whispered, gripping his arm. 40 minutes later, Emma emerged, eyes red but steady. Mitchell gave her a thumbs up. She'd done it. Dr. Gregory Pierce took the stand next. Mitchell didn't go easy on him. "Dr. Pierce, did Derek Brooks offer you money in exchange for a falsified incompetency certificate for Stanley Brooks?" Pierce hesitated, then nodded. Yes. He offered me $5,000. Mitchell presented bank records, videos, photographs, testimony from Detective Sarah Morgan. By the time the prosecution rested, the case was airtight. At 3 p.m., the jury left to deliberate. We waited 4 hours. At 7:15 p.m., the bailiff called us back. Judge Brennan read the verdicts. Derek Brooks, guilty of conspiracy to cause harm, guilty of elder abuse, guilty of financial exploitation, guilty of fraud, guilty of forgery. Sentence 15 years. Minimum 10 years before parole eligibility. Vanessa Brooks, guilty of conspiracy, guilty of elder abuse. Sentence 7 years. Lorraine Sullivan, guilty of conspiracy, guilty of financial exploitation. Sentence 4 years. Jessica Sullivan, guilty of fraud, guilty of forgery. Sentence 3 years. Minimum 18 months. The courtroom erupted. Vanessa sobbed. Lorraine screamed. Derek just sat there staring at the table. Judge Brennan banged her gavel. Order. Bailiffs removed the defendants. They were led away in handcuffs. Derek glanced back, once eyes locking on Stanley. For a moment I thought he might say something, but he just turned and walked through the door. Stanley let out a breath he'd been holding for months. "It's over," he whispered. Linda hugged him. Emma buried her face in his shoulder. I stood back watching my brother finally breathe free. 3 weeks later, Stanley sold the land. The highway project moved forward. The state offered $6.35 million. After taxes, legal fees, and Mitchell's cut, Stanley walked away with $4.8 million. He didn't keep the house. Too many ghosts. He donated it to a local nonprofit that turned it into a resource center for elder abuse survivors. In September, we moved to Bend, Oregon. Stanley, Linda, and Emma rented a small house 10 minutes from mine, 3 bedrooms, a backyard with a garden, a porch swing. Emma started 4th grade, joined a soccer team, and began weekly therapy sessions. Linda found work at a hospital in town. Stanley spent his days reading, walking, learning how to live again. That October, on a cool Saturday morning, Stanley and I stood on the banks of the Deschutes River, fishing rods in hand. Emma sat on a blanket nearby reading a book. Linda walked down the trail carrying a basket of sandwiches. Stanley cast his line, watched it arc over the water. He'd gained weight, 20 pounds, maybe more. His face had color again. His hands were steady. "I lost 8 years," he said quietly. I looked at him. "But I got you back," he continued. "I got Linda back. Emma's safe. That's the real victory." I smiled. "You won the moment you picked up that phone and called me." He shook his head. "You saved me, Sterling." "We saved each other," I said. Emma's voice rang out. "Uncle Sterling, Grandpa Mom says we can get a dog." Stanley laughed, a real laugh, the kind I hadn't heard in years. "A dog, huh?" "A big one," Emma said, grinning. "Then we'll get a dog," Stanley said. Emma jumped up and hugged him. Stanley wrapped his arms around her, eyes closed, holding on like he'd never let go. I looked out at the river, the sunlight dancing on the water. 8 years. $410,000. $6.35 million. 15-year sentences. Numbers and dates and court rulings. But here on this riverbank with my brother holding his granddaughter and his daughter laughing beside them, none of that mattered. We were family, and family was everything. If you've stayed with me through this family story, through every dark moment and hard-won victory, I want you to hear this. I spent 30 years as a private investigator, chasing criminals, building cases, believing I could fix the world one bad guy at a time. But when my own brother called me from that shed, starving, terrified, abandoned by his own son, I realized something. The most dangerous predators aren't strangers. They're the ones sitting at your dinner table. They're family stories you never want to believe could happen to you. Stanley trusted Derek because he was his son. He ignored the red flags because family felt sacred, and that trust nearly cost him everything. God gives us instincts for a reason. When someone isolates you, controls your money, cuts off your phone, those aren't accidents. They're weapons. And if you see it happening to someone you love, don't wait. Don't hope it gets better. Act. This dad revenge story isn't about me being a hero. It's about a man who waited too long to ask for help and a brother who almost arrived too late. Don't be like Stanley. Don't wait until you've lost 8 years. Don't be like me either. Don't let pride or distance keep you from the people who need you. Some call it justice. Some call it dad revenge. I call it survival. Because when the system moves too slow and the danger is too real, sometimes the only way to protect your family is to step into the fire yourself. If this family story reminded you of someone, a parent, a grandparent, a neighbor, reach out, check on them. One phone call can change everything. So here's what I'm asking. If this dad revenge moved you, drop a comment below, tell me what you think. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another story like this. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. I know it wasn't easy. One last thing, this story contains fictionalized elements created for educational purposes. If this content isn't for you, feel free to explore other videos on the channel that better suit your preferences. Stay safe, protect your family, and never ignore the warning signs.